Good evening everyone from this last rest day, and Project Army 2025 is continuing apace. So is the Harrier build. There it is, the first of two, which are going to be slightly upgraded AV-8B Harrier Pluses, being brought from the US Marine Corps and the Spanish Navy, because they are all going to F-35s, and I don't like the F-35. It's very good, but as you know, I operate the FC-31. So anyway, let's have a look at things on the ground, like little ants rummaging around as you look at them from 40,000 feet. And again, I'll say it's absolutely impossible to protect every vehicle 100% all of the time from every threat. What you're trying to do is mitigate the threats and just reduce cheap shots, because if you can protect your vehicles from cheap shots, it's better. So I've already done the light screening vehicles, which I've covered the Centauro and the Boxer MRAV. These are the upgrades to the already cope caged Centauros, but let's imagine they are off to the side doing light screening. Now, some vehicles, they're the Cavalry, so what do you expect? Some vehicles like this Namer APC, this is a Badger 3D print. Come back, Badger! Basically, it's really hard to give this vehicle more protection because the turret on the top is a remote turret, and this bit at the back of the turret is a spike missile launcher, so that has to come out. So when you start adding a cope cage, it gets harder and harder. Also on this vehicle, you've got the active protection system now on either side of the turret, the trophy. You've got a mortar there, and that is a remote turret. So if that is struck by a top attack weapon, you haven't lost the crew. The crew are still within the heavily armoured Namer shell. So it sort of swings and roundabouts with something like the Namer, which is a heavy APC. I don't operate too many of these. They're very expensive. They're very limited in their strategic mobility. Coming down to a medium IFV, the CV90. Again, it's really difficult to sort of introduce a lot of extra protection to this because of the weight limits. Now, I want these to be air transportable, and you start adding stuff on and you soon end up with only the C-17 that can transport them. So here we have a cope cage just to protect against cheap drone shots. The IFV, Armoured Fighting Vehicle, Infantry Fighting Vehicle, is actually really well protected itself. These, I think, are the best protected IFVs in use by the Ukrainians. They have extra armour here, extra armour here, extra armour here, extra armour all along the sides and the rear of the turret. Now, these have been knocked out, and one crewman, I think, sadly died, and one was captured. However, when you look at the shots of the vehicle in Moscow, it has survived remarkably well. The hit went in just above my finger here, just below that O, and that kind of did some damage to the crew, sadly, but the vehicle is remarkably intact. You can see it displayed in Moscow. It hasn't blown up. It has survived really well. Certainly better than the Bradleys are doing. And I like the CV90. Sorry if you like Bradleys, but this is a lot lower. Sure, it's a bit more cramped for the infantry, and this CV90C can only carry 6. But that low silhouette and the good armour stands it in good stead. Now, the other types of forces which are really difficult to up armour, we look at this ZBD 05, I think it is. This is the amphibious support vehicle. I'll come on to amphibious forces when I do the stern landing ship, but they are hard to upgrade and protect because you start adding weight onto these, and of course they sink. So this has just got a cope cage there to protect against cheap drone shots. This is not a heavily armoured vehicle, but it provides essential fire support for the troops going ashore with their Vikings, the BVS 410s. Now, it's really hard to protect things like the Vikings, the Foxhounds, light airborne vehicles, because when you start increasing the weight, and if you start adding cope cages like this, the Chinooks can't carry them. And really the job of the airborne forces is not to be in the position where they're facing this kind of threat. The light screening forces may face it because they're, you know, what's leading the MEF, the Malagasy Expeditionary Forces. But really, you don't want those to be in the situation where they're facing the threat. Now, certainly worth saying that I'm not intending the Malagasy Armed Forces to have to fight through treble layers of Russian defences like the Ukrainians are doing, or like the Russians are having to do fight through the Ukrainian defences. So just like the Ukrainians in what should, in my opinion, have been a raid, went into Kursk, which was a lightly protected border area. Really the light screening forces, the airborne, and even the heavier forces, if you can avoid the enemy's main line of defence, do flank them. Because when you start dealing with main lines of defences, you start looking at some pretty significant and serious killing power. Now, aside from the drones, which I've already covered and talked about, and I've given my initial thoughts on the subject, I hope you all like that. If you're not sure where that is, check out my community channel page, the homepage. But when you look at the way that killing technology has developed, and this is both on NATO and the former USSR side. Of course, Ukraine was in the USSR, so it does know how to build a good defensive position. The issue at the minute on Donbass is manpower. But let's have a look at some of the threats. So you've got your traditional anti-tank mines here, the round ones here that your tank runs over, the pressure activates it and off it pops. Is going to get a mobility kill against the main battle tank. May not kill the crew, but it will mobility kill the vehicle. And then you've got things like the bar mine, which is a British equivalent, which is sort of a long slab thing. And when they're laid, or were laid with the bar mine layer, those are laid directly into the ground. You've got remote scatterable equivalents as well, but they tend to go on the surface, being easier to sweep and destroy. So a proper minefield is dug in, whether it's using bar mines from the layer or the newer systems which can dig them in. And sometimes you have two anti-tank mines stacked together with a naughty band anti-personnel mine underneath to kill the engineers trying to defuse it. Very nasty, because you can stack these mines and create a huge explosion. Then you've got some really nasty killing machines. One of them here is the PTKM-1R. If you've not heard of it, look it up. It's a remote sensing 20 kilogram mine. It only has an angle, so it can't cover 360 degrees, but it's very deadly. And then you've got NATO equivalents, which are like rocket launchers. Basically put them in position, they have sensors, they trigger when the tank goes over them. Now, the idea of minefields is you want to channel your enemy into a kill zone. So a minefield which is left without cover of observation, machine guns, or direct fire weapons is just vulnerable. Same with your anti-tank ditch, because engineers will just come along and clear the route on hand if they need to at night. So you need to have the minefields covered, but your minefield in your anti-tank ditch is designed to push the enemy force into a kill zone. So it's designed to channel them. And a clever use of mines and anti-tank ditches with woodlands here, with the contours of the ground. You want your enemy not to realise that they are being channeled. And if you want to see the devastating effects of what being channeled is and being unable to breach a minefield, go look at the Russian attack on Vuhledar around a year and a half ago, where they got absolutely decimated. And then look at the entire Ukrainian counter-offensive of last year, where they got absolutely decimated. So minefield, kill zones, anti-tank ditches covered by direct fire. Push your enemy into your kill zone where your artillery, your direct fire weapons, your indirect fire weapons, your anti-tank guided missiles are all lined up on that area. The enemy end up sandwiched in there. They then meet an unexpected minefield or further defensive positions which you don't know about, and you channel them and destroy them. Suspicious that the Kursk border was not well defended. Now, the other threat and what's killing a lot of tanks, in pretty much I'd agree with Bad Lieutenant here, is indirect fire and direct fire weapons, with drones doing a lot of propaganda shots. But according to an article in the Bild, the German newspaper, only 10% of the drones are effective. But what is very effective and what is killing a lot of vehicles is things like the PTK M-1R, and this is the mine that I talked about on the previous page. There it is. And what this does is this senses remotely. The tank comes into its sensory area, it pops off the top here, the top goes up in the air, it's a top attack weapon, and it's an explosively formed penetrator. Bang goes the tank. The same thing is happening with anti-tank guided missiles, where in days of some of the people on the channel, I think Ian, I might be wrong, seeing the transition from Milan to Javelin with the top attack mode. Same with the Israeli Spike, NLAW top attack mode. Basically, it's using the power of the top attack and explosively formed penetrators in some cases to hit the tanks at the most vulnerable period. Now, if you are trying to breach an enemy defensive position, and again, the Malagasy Armed Forces will not be trying to do this in the African theatre, but they train hard. And the tankers, I did say tankers, like nothing best than rolling around in their tanks. They haven't got too many of them. They've got more light vehicles now, but they do practice. So one of the solutions to the top armour, and this is something you're seeing on the Russian equipment, is composite material in this raised V shape. It can be reactive armour such as Contact 5 on top of the cope cage, giving you space to the top of the turret. It won't protect against everything, but it may make a penetrating hit less damaging. So we're going to talk about breaching vehicles, and these are my 2025 breaching vehicles. But first, let's have a look at the concepts of breaching, and this is where both the Russians and the Ukrainians, the Russians, to be fair, they are learning very fast. Never underestimate your enemy. Good lesson there. But if you are going to breach and you can't find a flank and you can't get round the enemy positions, and there is some strategic ground, not stupid ground, there is something strategic that you need to take, or you need to disarm your enemy to meet your objective of disarming them and compelling them to do your will, sometimes there is no alternative to breaching. Now, breaching operations should always be covered by air defences. They should always be covered by air power, both in close air support and in combat air patrol. If you don't have control of the air and you don't have air defences, your breaching operation will come unstuck from the off. Then you need to have artillery in support, whether it's tube artillery or rocket artillery, and you want to keep the enemy position suppressed, either with suppressing or destructive fire, while your breaching operation continues. And you don't want one breach or two breaches, you want multiple breaches. One of the issues the Ukrainians had in their summer offensive of 2023 is they had far too narrow breaching operations, far too narrow an area. It was predictable, and basically if you have two small breaches, and in their case limited amounts of equipment, what can end up is your enemy will bring their indirect fire weapons and their close support back on you. So preferably you're going to have multiple breaches, and you're going to have dummy breaches as well. But let's have a look. So you're going to approach the minefield here, the anti-tank ditches behind it, the enemy position, and you need to have direct fire units in Overwatch. So let's have a look at what the tankers are up to. So here we have a Merkava 4. This is a specialised custom breaching vehicle which I've built. This is the Trumpeter Panther vehicle combined with the Hobby Boss Merkava kit. They had a baby and it came out like this. So what I've done is I've added a cope cage on the top to protect against cheap shots, and I've added this composite Kevlar lightweight armour on there, so if it triggers a PTKM 1R or that kind of mine, the Americans did have one, the M93 Hornet project, then it will hopefully give some top attack protection. Now, just like the Panther, this can be operated remotely there by the radio aerial and the cameras. So again, when you're using it in robotic mode, you are protecting the crew, but sometimes that isn't always possible. So breaching here, we've got the Merkava breaching vehicle going forwards with the track width mine roller. That's being followed up here by a Fuchs Fox German 6x6 German made, I should say, engineering vehicle. This has got the Butler's printed Mine Plow from the Striker. It's got extra armour, applique armour there from Dragon Badger, not Badger, and then it's got the cope cage to prevent cheap drone shots, and it's got some composite top attack armour on there as well, because these vehicles are your prime targets for anything that's top attack anti-tank guided weapon. Now the Merkava 4 has got good armour against ATGMs, but these aren't fitted with the trophy yet. The Fuchs or Fox, I'll probably get a YouTube strike for saying that, is fitted here with the lane marking system, which fires your lane marking things into the ground so that the troops and vehicles following along know where the lane is. It's got anti-IED aerials, project jamming to protect it. Now the breaching Merkava also has a dog ear, as I call them, rubber flap here, and some more of that top attack armour here, and again to stop cheap drone shots. Mine roller first, then your track width mine plow, and bringing up the rear and ready to go and deal with that anti-tank ditch is a Merkava 3 engineering vehicle, which is an older conversion I did using a Trumpeter mine plow from that Panther M1A1 Panther mine clearing vehicle, and the Merkava 3 die-cast they met and had a baby. So this will have a sort of one with a crane which is in the loft, and that will be used to put these fascines in. The fascines go into the anti-tank ditch, and then the tank can roll over them. So that's the next layer of breaching. So you're mine rolling, you're clearing, and then you're clearing again. Here in the overwatch position is the Merkava 4, which I've given some top attack armour to as well. This is a 2025 Merkava 4 trophy there. And the idea is that these will go forwards under the cover of artillery, under the cover of close air support, and they will clear a path through the area. Now, ideally, you would have already a infantry contingent which are pushed across, but it's not always possible. So what would be happening around this is really the light screening forces would be trying to get around, trying to set up some positions where they have overwatch. And ultimately, if you're going to have to do this, you want to do it quickly under lots of cover and suppressing fire. And you want to get a situation where you can have something like this Namer or heavy IFV or the CV90 deposit the infantry on the other side of the obstacle to give you protective fire. Ideally, you'd want them across first, but it's not always possible. And that's where the overwatch and having direct fire weapons to the flanks and in overwatch is incredibly important. Now, I hope that helps. I've never served in the military. I've studied war. So I hope this is kind of the right thing. I like creating these vehicles. I like looking at what ifs So there we go, the Merkava and the Panther. The Fox with extra protection, and the Merkava 3 engineering vehicle. 3D printed Badger, 3D printed. Where are they? Come back please. Or you can have the CV90 there going forwards. So this is kind of what I've been working on. I hope you like it. Let me know if it's okay. Take care. Goodbye.